Oh.
Marcianos. Oh, Battle Rank 100.
Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk to you about the much misunderstood new vehicle in Planetside, the Valkyrie. If you have pizza coming and want a 30-second review, I'll do the TLDR right at the beginning. No, it's not as bad as you think. Yes, it still needs work. Many of the guns are borderline useless, and it requires at least 4 people to really start operating effectively. On the flip side, it's extremely fun to use and can be used to great effect. Now, if you're still here and not enjoying pizza, let's get on with the actual review. First things first, is the Valkyrie any good? Well, the short answer is yes. The long answer is still yes, but with a few qualifying statements. The first adjustment that you have to make when you're flying the Valkyrie is obviously made by the pilot. The Valkyrie doesn't really fly or handle like any other vehicle in Planetside, and you can't try to fly it like any other vehicle. It relies much more on rolling and small maneuvering close to the ground. You shouldn't be getting into any chasing or running fights with your opponents, and you should always be using terrain to your advantage. While some people have compared the Valkyrie flying style to a helicopter, I don't really feel that's an accurate assessment at all. For one, it can flip and roll in all 360 degrees, which a helicopter obviously cannot do. Secondly, it handles much better and changes directions very quickly compared to a helicopter. I would compare the Valkyrie's flight model to the 6 degrees of freedom that you get in many space sims. Regardless of what you want to describe it as, though, it is very unique and really a lot of fun to fly. While it's larger than an ESF and not technically more maneuverable, the slightly better handling and the lower speeds in conjunction with your speed being so easy to control allows the Valkyrie to maneuver in tight places like Austin with relative ease. Aside from how you have to fly, combat in a Valkyrie is a bit different as well. As it's neither incredibly strong nor incredibly fast, unnecessary damage should be avoided at all costs, at all times. You can't treat it like a Lib or a Galaxy and say, just one more shot when you're getting attacked. You need to break for cover quickly. This brings me to the next point. If you're routinely flying more than 100 or 200 meters off the ground, stop. Near the ground you can quickly find cover and use terrain to break locks or lose attackers. Higher up you're vulnerable to ground-based AA, and aircraft will have a field day shooting you up. The Valkyrie is an extremely close quarters-oriented vehicle and needs to be played as such. Speaking of combat, how are the guns? This is probably my biggest problem with the Valk right now. Many of the guns are borderline useless or just flat-out useless. The default Wyvern is actually the best of the bunch, followed by the Hellion. After that, though, your options drop down to basically nothing. The Cass, which is the anti-infantry gun, has too little splash damage and too low of a rate of fire to be useful. My gunners had nearly as much luck using the default against infantry as they did the Cass. To be more useful, this gun likely needs to be turned into more of a Banshee-type weapon, with a high rate of fire, decent accuracy, and low clip size that will cater to the hit-and-run playstyle of the Valk. The VLG missile launcher, which is the guided missile, is also borderline useless. The velocity is just abysmally slow to the point where a Valk in flight can nearly outrun it, meaning the gunner has a terrible time trying to aim unless you're stationary, which is usually not a good thing to do when you're in a Valkyrie. The weapon needs, if nothing else, a significant velocity increase to make it worthwhile. While I don't have much personal experience with the Pelter rocket pods, I have heard pretty decent things about their damage to vehicles. However, they have almost no splash damage and no utility against aircraft. Turning these into the equivalent of ESF rocket pods would likely be the best solution. On the bright side, there is one great weapon and one decent one. The default is a great gun and easily the best Valk weapon at the moment. Operating much like a Basilisk, it does good damage to nearly everything in the game. While I would like to see it receive about a 50 ms velocity buff, it feels very good right now and is probably the most effective gun. The Hellion is really the only other Valkyrie weapon I would even describe as passable at the moment. It functions very similar to the Vulcan, which the TR have for their main battle tank and harasser. It has a short spin-up time to reach full rate of fire and is primarily an anti-vehicle weapon. However, it has a little bit of utility against other aircraft, which is mainly held back by a couple of things. The spin-up time is long enough that you often lose your angle by the time the weapon is fully spun up. It's got a rather large cone of fire range and has just atrocious velocity. I'd like to see at least 2 of these aspects changed in order to make it a more competitive weapon. The spin-up time in particular is a rather large issue, as it requires the Valkyrie to stay exposed and in danger for an extended period of time, which, as I've mentioned, really not a good thing to be doing with the Valkyrie. Moving past the weapons, how is the Valkyrie in terms of damage resistance? Well, not quite as bad as people have been leading on. Flak has been really a non-issue for me in my time flying so far. It definitely damages you, but as long as you're not already extremely low health, it's usually fairly simple to break line of sight and get away. Since the most recent patch, Flak does relatively little damage to infantry in the rumble seats, and it allows you to actually be a safe transport vehicle to ride in. Dalton damage at the moment is a bit high against it. Right now, one shot sets the Valkyrie on fire, which is extremely unforgiving for such a large vehicle. I would prefer it doing something like 80 to 85% damage. This would still be a very large hit, but would give the crew a little bit of a chance to recover. Other than that, though, I'm really pretty happy with the resistances. ESF nosegun damage could be lowered a bit, and it feels like someone may have forgotten a resist value against Air Hammer because it feels like it does a huge amount of damage. But all in all, I can't really complain about the health of the Valkyrie. Having a dedicated engineer or 2 repping gives you a lot of sustained power in fights, and I rarely felt like I was destroyed without any chance. The final thing I'd like to touch on briefly before I make a few suggestions for the vehicle is crew composition. While I was flying, I liked to have at least a 4-man crew, and a 6-man crew was just awesome to have. With 4, I'd have the pilot, the gunner, and 1 rumble seat be engineers. The second rumble seat would be a heavy assault with ground-air lock-ons to help fight aircraft. If I had a crew of 6, I'd just add another engineer and another heavy assault. This makes a very potent platform, as the double heavies have the ability to almost instantly kill an ESF, and can do large amounts of damage to anything else. I'll get into more specific tactics in later videos, but for now, my advice would be to always have at least 1 engineer and 1 heavy assault in the rumble seat if you can. Now, as I mentioned, the Valk isn't perfect, and there are a few larger complaints and suggestions I have. The first, and probably the biggest, is that you have to equip the ability for squad spawning and safe ejection from the aircraft. However, this is really by far the best option, and it's the only one anyone is ever going to run. Therefore, it's really pointless to have it taking up the slot and should just be made part of the vehicle. An option that could be put in its place is afterburners similar to what the Liberator has, with a fairly short burn time and a longish recharge, but something that can get you out of a tight spot. My final big complaint is the directive tree. It only has 5 options in it at the moment, and while I'm sure more will be added, it's fairly brutal to try to do at the moment. For instance, I'm on the second to last tier and need 450 squad spawn, pilot assists, and gun kills, in addition to either 300 deploy assists or 100 rumble seat kills. Now, this isn't undoable, but it is quite difficult, and that's only the second to last tier. For the final tier, you'll likely need several hundred rumble seat kills, as well as 500 deploy assists, and likely near 1,000 of the other 3. While some of these aren't too bad, the fact that you have no choice in what you want to pursue is a problem that plagues many vehicles, but the Valkyrie especially. It needs a few more ways to work towards the final tier, or some of the requirements like rumble seat kills probably shouldn't be quite as high as they are, because it's really not that easy to get them. Now, before I wrap this up, I'm sure many of you will ask, so I will throw out the loadout that I've been using. I've been running Vehicle Stealth, Squad Logistics, Evasiveness Airframe, and the default nose gun for about 75 to 80% of the time I've been flying. The only change is that I occasionally run Auto Repair if I'm flying as more of a support vehicle and dropping people at fights. I would like to touch on that quickly. The Valkyrie is supposed to be a support vehicle, however it does this very poorly, as it requires several people inside of it to actually be operating effectively. You're really limiting the number of people in your squad that can be dropping out of it. This isn't a huge issue if you're using the Valkyrie as a combat vehicle, which is what I've been doing the majority of the time. However, it will limit you a lot if you're using it in terms of supporting your squad. So, with all that out of the way, that's all I've got for now on the Valkyrie. Like I said, it is a very fun vehicle that's currently vastly underestimated by most of the player base in my opinion. As you've probably noticed from the footage I've been showing, I've really had no problem engaging basically any target, and short of being outnumbered, rarely have any problem surviving. Thanks for watching. I'm going to be having some tutorials for flying the Valkyrie in the future, so be sure to subscribe if you want to get in on that action, and enjoy the rest of the video.
They're all
Okay.
together.
Middle one.
One on our tail.
Hit.
I hit one of them.
I have no shot.
In an angle, sorry.
Fire.
Blocking
All three
on one
on
of them farther off. I've hit two of them, but
Fire.
One left.
BR-99 and stuff. I don't know what this guy's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hornets.
Almost dead.
oof, I'm hurt.
That flag, man.
I'm dead. I'm out.
He's above us. Behind us. They're back, friends.
Okay, I'm locking currently. Hit. Oh, took one down.
Yeah, I had him. That's awesome. Another Mossy. Like 5.
Locking.
3. I'm bad at numbers. There's 2 looking at us and 1 below us.
Earl, your voice in the game is weird. Ah. I'm
Got
good.
5 shots.
I'm not too
Kansas. We're not allowed to switch sides. Stop asking me to switch sides.
Yankee and Rocky.
Alright.
2 coming at us.
Okay. Okay. Missed.
Like 5 on us.
Sorry. Locking. Lock broke.
One on our tail.
This is awesome. These are like, this is a whole outfit trying to kill us.
Hi.
Hello.